We built our entire new XR lab for less than what it costs to buy a mannequin. The mannequins themselves can cost $80,000 to $150,000 a piece.
I still remember my first time donning the VR headset. I can hear the alarm, I can feel my heart rate went up.
I had a student who took her headset off and she's like, I can't wait to do more. When do we get to come back and do this again? That to me is a massive success.
Virtual reality allows us to mimic the alarms of the machines, the breathing machines, and then the noise that the patient actually make, which usually not easily replicable with the mannequin.
It takes about 30 seconds for them to go from I'm in a VR lab to I'm in a patient's house taking care of them.
The best part about it is if we do it right, it translates into better care for patients. And that's, I think, the coolest part, where you can have fun in the learning, and then it's literally going to translate into better performance and better care.
The thing I love about Acadicus is it allows me to build individual scenarios that meet my students' needs, meets my community's needs, meets my school's needs.
You can be geographically distant. It's still really great for emotional immersion, tactical spatial reasoning, teamwork.
Having that ability to build teamwork and collaboration and closed loop communication, those are all really, really important.
All three of us was virtually present in the resuscitation room. We were talking to each other. I just have to kind of relate what Dr. McAdam or the physician from Vietnam was saying, but I still feel like a part of the team. It was wonderful.
Students are individuals. They have different needs. They have different ways of learning.
I wanted my student to feel like they were immersed in an actual call.
Like, I can literally customize in the moment based off how they're performing in the scenario, but I can also make a scenario based on what our students need, where I can't do that with other VR programs.
Acadicus becomes my benchmark for now all other programs. Can I join my student in VR? Can we look at things together? Is it customizable?
I think it changes the game tremendously. We are going to see a greater level of knowledge sharing and a greater level of diversity and equity in how we educate people.
We don't want an automated tool because the nuance of team communication is just, it's too complex.
They enjoy it and they come back asking to do more, which to me, that is what education should be.
I'm excited. I like Acadicus. I think your approach has been exactly right. It's been ahead of its time.
Just like a video game or a ride could leave a certain impression upon me and excitement, let's do that same thing for education and have that be fun and exciting, but there's a real purpose to it because you're doing it to try and help improve the health of neonates. Tying those together seemed like a pretty fun and unique way to approach education. I get to work on things to kind of look forward. Where are we going? Where are we currently at? How do we improve healthcare? How do you let every baby thrive? Not just survive, but thrive. And so it's really optimizing outcomes and working towards that goal as a group. Yeah, simulation is inherent in our field, so we have to train. So we have a neonatal resuscitation program training through the American Academy of Pediatrics. And this is where we work on certain algorithms, pathways that are evidence-based and expert-based in order to care for babies. And there's a plastic mannequin, and it may just be the head of a baby, or it looks like a doll. And you can tell it's not lifelike. And even the best models where the doll may move a little bit or make a noise, you know it's artificial. So you really have to kind of suspend reality and pretend like it's artificial and just focus on certain steps and kind of team dynamics. Challenge with that is the simulations often don't truly mimic real life well. So you really have to get your mind on board and focus to kind of pretend that it's real. And when I thought about virtual reality, it's an immersive way to learn that you can create an environment that mimics real life better. So if you're a musician or an athlete, trying to get in that right mindset because you're gonna perform. Our performances, you might be saving a life. So you really want to mentally get into the right space so that when it's a real situation and there's a baby that's not breathing or you need to resuscitate them, that you've practiced in a way, you've prepared in a way that mimics that real life situation. The closer you can get to it, I think the more calm you'll be and you'll react in a better scenario. It's just like an airline pilot or anyone else when they train for these scenarios that you really want to be ready for it and not panic. It prepares you better. And if you can practice that over and over, you'll stay more calm and you'll think more clearly when it's a real life situation. I think just the ability to work users. I don't just have to be in it by myself. There can be avatars that are already in it that are like a nurse, they're more stationary, they could have some movement, but I could also have a colleague who could put on a headset. And what I really liked is I could be in one site, someone else could be in another part of the country or another part of the world, and we could all be in the same space, learning from each other. I could bring experts in, I could bring trainees in. The traditional way of learning, we couldn't bring all those people together. We'd all have to get on airplanes and fly to a current site. It's just not logistically feasible. So this became something that wow, if in the future, I could be anywhere and throw on the headset, or I can just put it in my backpack, which I do. I'll take the headset somewhere and I can just throw it on the table here and get into this new scene. And that to me was really exciting and I think offers kind of endless possibilities really for where you could go with this from an educational perspective. We did a project with some folks in Vietnam. One of our fellows who I've been working with, Dr. Trin, we arranged for her to do a rotation in Ho Chi Minh City. So she was at a neonatal intensive care unit there, working with physicians, and I would log on in my basement on Zoom, say hi to them. I'd put on my headset and we would meet in the resuscitation bay that we'd created. And then we would work on teaching and training there. So we would go through a scenario where we had to resuscitate a baby. And she was interpreting, so she's in Vietnam, I'm in my basement. You can do this anywhere. All you need is you need your laptop, you need your headset, and you need some Wi-Fi, and that's about it.
When I start training in the United States, the one thing I always want to do is to be able to give back to my country and kind of bring the knowledge to be the gap that help improve the medical care at home. I opt to do it in Vietnam, where I can kind of experience firsthand what the neonatal care look like at home, because you cannot really improve anything until you actually understand how things are. I don't think people really understand what virtual reality simulation is until they actually tried it. When I kind of pitched the project to the head of the department there, he was just like, okay, so it's similar to simulations. And I was like, to a sense, but in this case, I don't really need a mannequin. Everything will be virtual. I think most of them was expecting to just put on the headset and maybe watch a video. I don't think they really understand or expected that it's gonna be, they actually gonna interact with the virtual babies and will resuscitate the virtual babies. So we have physicians from rural area Vietnam that came to the unit for other training, and here we all three of us was virtually present in the resuscitation room. We were talking to each other. I just have to kind of relate what Dr. McAdam or the physician from Vietnam was saying. Usually we do it in a simulation center, whereas there's not really delivery happening. So the room is usually very quiet. There are usually no alarms, no talking. Virtual reality allows us to mimic the environment that we see in real clinical scenario. We can have the background noises with people talking, the alarms of the machines, the breathing machines, and then the noise that the patient actually make, which usually not easily replicable with the mannequin. I still remember my first time donning the VR headset and get into the scenario. I can hear the alarm, I can feel my heart rate went up, and I was like, wow, I did not usually have this response during a regular simulation. So that was really cool. It helped me become a better physician in real life.
Partnering on this, I think, is the real exciting piece, and where I see the future is multiple institutions globally, each kind of working on their aspect, and then all that gets to coalesce. That becomes really a new and fun way to learn that we just haven't experienced before. And instead of just being a video game, it's no, it's related to my career. And the best part about it is if we do it right, it translates into better care for patients. And that's, I think, the coolest part, where you can have fun in the learning, and then it's literally going to translate into better performance and better care. So that's the goal.
I'm a paramedic by trade, and VR wasn't even really on my radar. I mean, the last time prior to this that I had been in virtual reality was like the mid-90s, and I was in a VR thing in the mall and shooting the aliens out of the sky. What happened was Carly Brady, who's now my manager, had come to me because we were working on a different project. And she knew that I was that creative type that could use technology and leverage it in my class. I put the headset on, and I had said that my interest was in cardiology. And so we started, looking at anatomy stuff that was in there. And I actually said to Carly, I'll take it right now. Like, I'll take this and I'll use it in my class like tomorrow. I saw virtual reality as a tool in my class to sort of make my lectures more interesting, more interactive, and a little bit more fun.
Having Bill with that background of being a paramedic, I think was a very easy step for us to get into virtual reality, because he was so familiar with what needed to happen, what he wanted to teach his students. He knew where his students were having gaps in their learning. And so I think the paramedic really did help grasp what we could do in virtual reality and helping our students learn those skills. Having the XR Center here at Madison College has really allowed us to bring virtual reality into the classroom in a simpler way. When we first started, we had laptops and headsets and backpacks, and we were hauling these things from campus to campus, room to room. I think we only had maybe 4 at the time. So we were building all this content, and it was really exciting, but actually getting it into the students and faculty's hands was an obstacle. And so Bill and I knew that if we wanted virtual reality to really take off, we needed to have a dedicated space. We needed to have high-end machines and headsets for our students and faculty to make it the best experience it could possibly be. Having this area here, now we can take all of the content that we've spent years building, and we get to see our faculty and students use it.
One of the things that we're always trying to do as teachers is to help our students understand what we already know. So I know something, I'm trying to pass that knowledge on to that student. So I can't have you in my head and seeing through my eyes, except in VR, I actually can. I had that heart, and I was looking at that heart, and I was seeing the structures that I wanted my students to understand. I was seeing the valves, I was seeing the ventricles, and my students got it. I used to spend, after cardiology, my wife would say, oh, it's cardiology time, isn't it? Because she knew that I wasn't going to be home early, I was going to be home late, I was staying after class, I was coming in early, I was helping my students understand the concepts. Because they had a pretty tough time sometimes understanding, like, okay, if there's pressure inside the lungs, why does the blood back up into the heart, and those kind of things. And I tried all kinds of ways, drawing out pumps and all of this kind of stuff. But with virtual reality, I could actually take that heart and go, okay, now you see the blood flow would come from here in the right atria, and then it would follow down into the right ventricle. And you see how the right ventricle is directly connected to the lungs. And they went, oh yeah, okay, we can see that. Now we understand, and that was the understanding that came from it, was like, oh, now I get to see what he's seeing. Now, instead of trying to imagine what my instructor is saying, I can see what he's seeing. I want my student to practice. I don't want to put you in front of an actual human yet. Let's get you somewhere where we can practice. Now, what we've done traditionally is we've used mannequin simulation, which is fine. The mannequins are extremely expensive. You have to have like a vast knowledge of how to repair these things sometimes. But with virtual reality, it wasn't like that. Well, I could go to Acadicus and I could say, here are some of the things that I need. This is what I'm looking to do. And then with the help of their team, I was able to take those ideas that I had in my head and bring them out. And of course, my first one was dynamic cardiology. Dynamic cardiology is, what is it like to run a cardiac arrest? Okay, one of the most stressful times of your life. is running a cardiac arrest as a paramedic. And so you want to do everything right. You want to make sure that you're not going to mess it up. You want to make sure that you're going to do everything you can for that patient. At the end, you want to make sure that you can say, hey, I did the absolute best I could. And everything that I did was the best I could do. So with virtual reality then, and that dynamic cardiology scenario, I was now able to take the student and place them into a cardiac arrest scenario and allow them to do it right, to do it wrong, and not just to see a mannequin, but to now see a condo that this elderly person lives in. And there's his wife standing over there. And there's pictures of his grandkids on the credenza, those kind of things. I wanted my student to feel like they were immersed in an actual call without having to bring them to that actual call. The first time I worked at cardiac arrest as a student, I was a brand new EMT. I was like days into being an EMT. And it was one of the most stressful experiences of my life. I had no idea what I was doing. Luckily, I had great paramedics around me that were able to help me and support me. But I was lost. And afterwards, I thought, did I do that all wrong? So bringing someone into virtual reality gives them that real experience.
I think virtual reality and the XR Center at Madison College is putting Madison College on the map. We are right down the street from the University of Wisconsin-Madison that does wonderful things, but to my knowledge, they don't have an XR Center. We're teaching students in various programs that you probably wouldn't even think of that virtual reality is helping them with. So I think as the word gets out and we're able to show more efficacy as well with what we're doing with virtual reality here in the XR Center, I think that's just going to really put Madison College ahead of even four-year research universities.